Good morning. Or afternoon, not yet. It is truly an honor to be here with you today. My name is Laura James. I am a painter and illustrator, born in Brooklyn, New York, to Antiguan parents. And for more than 30 years, I have worked in a visual language inspired by Ethiopian Christian iconography, using color, pattern, and sacred form to tell stories about faith, ancestry, and Black life. Much of my work asks a simple but difficult question: who do we see as holy, and who has been left out of the picture? Today, as we remember the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I want to reflect with you on the gospel reading from Matthew, the Beatitudes, and on what they reveal about God's vision of justice, dignity, and what Dr. King called the beloved community. When Jesus sees the crowds, the reading tells us, he goes up the mountain, sits down, and begins to teach. And what he offers is not comfort for the powerful, but blessing for those the world has wounded. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the persecuted. This is not polite religion. This is not abstract theology. This is a radical reordering of the world. Dr. King understood this deeply. He reminded us again and again that Christianity, rightly lived, is not about maintaining order, but about transforming it. The Beatitudes name the very people society tries to ignore and declares them blessed. Several years ago, I painted a work called A Sermon for Our Ancestors, which you see referenced in today's bulletin. That painting grew out of my long struggle with American history, especially the history of slavery. This was the third in a series of race paintings I started in 1998 after I saw in the news about a Black man who was dragged to death in Texas, and then for the first time, seeing a haunting image of a man who had been lynched in a book called 12 Million Black Voices. I realized then that slavery was not simply a past event, it was a living wound. As I read the Beatitudes again while working on this painting, I had a realization. These words already belong to the enslaved, the poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. These were not metaphors, they were lived realities. In the painting, I placed a Black Christ at the center, preaching the Sermon on the Mount to enslaved men and women, many in chains. Around him are scenes illustrating the Beatitudes, not idealized scenes, but honest ones: a slave auction, forced violence, lynching, terror, resistance, mercy. I painted the work like a storyboard so the eye must move, must witness, must focus. I chose to work in the Ethiopian Christian style here because it connects Christ to Africa, to a lineage older than American chattel slavery, older than America. Representing Christ as African places him in direct solidarity with the enslaved. He is not distant, he is not neutral, he is present, and that matters. Because the Beatitudes do not say, blessed will you be someday. They say, blessed are you now, right now, in the suffering, in the struggle. This is where Dr. King's vision of the beloved community comes into focus. The beloved community is not sentimental harmony. It is a society rooted in justice, where systems no longer depend on exploitation and where the dignity of every human being is recognized. Dr. King believed that this vision was not political idealism. It was biblical truth. In that sense, the Beatitudes are a blueprint for the beloved community. But here is the uncomfortable part. The Beatitudes also imply a warning. If the merciful are blessed, what does that say about the merciless? If the peacemakers are called children of God, what does that say about those who profit from violence? If the persecuted inherit the kingdom, what becomes of those who persecute? Dr. King did not shy away from this question. He spoke clearly about the giant triplets of racism, militarism, and materialism. He reminded us that neutrality in the face of injustice is not innocence, it is complicity. This is why today's Old Testament reading from Exodus matters so much. God says, I have observed the misery of my people. I have heard their cry. I know their suffering, and I have come down to deliver them. God does not deny oppression. God names it, and then God calls someone, an ordinary, uncertain person, you and I, to participate in liberation. Moses asks, who am I to do such impossible things? And God replies, I will be with you. That is the same promise Christ embodies on the mountain. That is the same promise Dr. King trusted with his life. That is the same promise the Spirit still offers us. The reading from Ephesians reminds us that our struggle is not merely against flesh and blood, but against systems, powers, and forces that deform human life. And we are told to put on the armor of God, not armor for domination, but for truth, righteousness, peace, faith, and prayer. Dr. King wore that armor. So did the ancestors my painting honors. So must we. The Beatitudes are not asking us simply to admire the suffering. They are asking us to choose sides, to ask ourselves honestly, where do I stand in this sermon? Am I among the merciful, the peacemakers, those who hunger for righteousness, or am I more comfortable at a distance? The beloved community is not built by avoiding pain. It is built by telling the truth, by remembering rightly, and by committing ourselves to love that costs something. I paint difficult subjects in a way that invites people in because beauty can open doors that fear keeps shut. But once inside, we are responsible for what we see. Dr. King taught us that love is not passive. It is active, disciplined, and courageous. So my invitation today is simple. Let us hear the Beatitudes not as ancient poetry, but as a living call. Let us honor our ancestors not only with memory, but with action. Both those who were blessed in the midst of oppression and those who stood as allies, working to make freedom possible. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would remind us that the highest honor we can give them is not praise alone, but our willingness to commit ourselves anew to the beloved community where justice and mercy meet, where truth is spoken, and where no one is disposable. Blessed are the persecuted. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. May we not only believe these words, may we live them. Amen.